Welcome to the East County Sports Report, brought to you by eastcountysports.com. My name is Jon Owens. I'm joined by Ramon Scott. Of course, Dave Dickens, not with us tonight. He's on special assignment at the happiest place on earth, up there in Disneyland. We hope you're having fun up there, Dave. We'll do the work here. You say hi to Mickey for us. It was a crazy, fun week in the East County for week 4. We'll start off with the banner game of the season, at least to this point here in the East County. That was Helix versus Cathedral, two teams with a lot of history, a lot of hardware between the two of them. Of course, Cathedral's roster not quite what it was a year ago. How did that game shape up?
Well, it's really Helix's county rival now is Cathedral. I mean, they meet in the playoffs. They have this regular season battle as well. But Helix is just a little more mature than them right now. Cathedral had some injuries in that game as well that were kind of underreported. 39-0. Helix wins the game. Carson Baker, I thought, was 4 touchdowns passing and 1 rushing. And Fato Noah, 170-something yards rushing. Just a great day for Helix overall. I think they are back on stride now after a little hiccup there. And they got knocked out of their spot, number 2 in the polls. They're now number 3, and they won. Madison jumped over them, so that's going to fuel Helix a little bit.
What I really thought was interesting about the Helix game is they had a little rough start in the first half, some penalties and some different things, but they score on their last 5 straight possessions. And I tell you what, they really hit the gas pedal at the end and really flexed that Helix muscle.
Cathedral's still going to be Cathedral, so it was a tough game early, but once Helix settled in, they've got all that talent right now, and they're back on track.
All right, another game this past week that was a lot of fun for the East County. LCAP defeating Patrick Henry.
A great game out there, as we said it would be, and the story there was Antonio Olivieri. He took over, of course, at quarterback, and he has done a great job. Now, he's not a prototypical quarterback. He's kind of forming into being a tight end at the next level. I mean, he looks great in that role, but he also plays tremendous defense, and El Capitan did the job. Now, when you get a quarterback in there and you want a leader, Antonio was the man to do that for El Cap. They got the win 42-35.
Now, probably one of the more interesting games, at least because it's playing a team that we don't get to cover ever because they're from way east out there in Arizona. That's Castile at Monte Vista. This is a game that you went to, and you found it quite entertaining.
That's right, and I thought it would be an interesting matchup to see, so I wanted to go out there and check out Castile. And Monte Vista played very well, and they stayed in the game the whole way. It went to overtime, and Castile made a tremendous play in overtime. It kind of seemed like once they got into overtime that Monte Vista was at a disadvantage with their run-oriented offense, while Castile is a pass offense. In fact, Castile went down, struck the big score, ran it in, got the lead. Jamon McClendon rushed 44 times for Monte Vista in that game, so they did what they do, and they stayed in it 28-21. Castile got the win. I was DMing with Coach Stowers. They were riding the bus back to Arizona, and he complimented Monte Vista, of course, on their game plan, and Jamon and Coach Hamamoto, and they had a nice time, of course, taking the win out of Spring Valley.
And the best thing, too, is Monte Vista is really showing that great progress over the years, really building the program. And I'll tell you what, I think it's only up from here for them.
Well, they're a contender in D4, and simple as that.
Okay. Well, week 5 promises some really awesome matchups, and let's get through this. And of course, if we missed one of the games that you wanted to know a little bit more about, head on over to eastcountysports.com. All the stats, standings, everything you'd want to see right there in one place. So heading into week 5, we'll start off with Helix again. We should, one of the highest rated team from the East County, taking on St. Augustine.
Yeah, don't forget touchdowns against cancer this week. We're going to get in the end zone and help raise money for kids' cancer. Helix and the Saints. This one is going to feature an interesting situation with Isaac Taylor Stewart, the great All-American for Helix, going back to Mesa College, facing the Saints. He was there for 3 years, and now he's over at Helix. That's going to be a real interesting battle for him, going up against some of his former mates. And I think that is going to be explosive situation, really, for Stewart. I mean, he's kind of been bottled up. He hasn't had the big headlines yet over at Helix. He's done a great job. There's no doubt about it. But I think he's going to be looking to do something special in this game. And watch for his matchup with the Saints' J.R. Justice, who already has 4 touchdowns and 18 receptions this year. I'm going to say Helix is going to win this one, though, comfortably. I've got Helix by 2 scores, at least.
Okay. And the next matchup really is pretty interesting if you look. Fast forward a few weeks when we start league and you start looking at common opponents. Of course, the next game, Valhalla at Eastlake. Of course, Eastlake defeating Grossmont this past week, and that's that league potential common opponents that you can look at. How are you picking this one?
Well, the Titans, 6 interceptions against the Hillers, and they also had 6 sacks. That's menacing, and that's got to be concern for Valhalla. But I think if they stay with Ty Shimke and also with Madriz running the ball more, trying to shorten the game down a little bit, I think that that's going to be their best chance to beat Eastlake. I had to go back in the Wayback Machine for this one, John. 1996 was the last time that these teams met, and it was actually a victory for Eastlake. They came from behind. I was wondering if you were at that game.
No, I was somewhere in Iowa at that time.
I know that Gene Yale was at that game. He could probably tell us more about that. But yeah, so the Titans, they mostly run, even though we think of them as a fast team. They mostly do running, so I think Big Orange, Josh McNish, Hyder, and maybe Jace Manning controlling the action there. Try to keep this one close, but I still have Eastlake by 2 scores.
Okay, and Eastlake obviously much improved over a year ago, and once again that program on the rise. We'll see if Valhalla can slow them down a little bit this week. Heading on over back to this neck of the woods, West Hills taking on Sarah. This is a really interesting matchup as well. Sarah comes in 2-1. West Hills has obviously had some very good performances this season.
3-game winning streak. That's big news in West Santee. You know, this matchup is interesting. They've only met 7 times. Sarah's literally 1 freeway exit up to 52 for West Hills, so it's not a very far commute, that's for sure. But let's talk about the man who had such a great game last week. We all wish we could be Cade Weaver for one night. He caught 2 touchdown passes, including a beautiful over-the-shoulder catch in tight coverage, and then kicked the game-winning 42-yard field goal, and the whole team goes on the field, and everyone's going crazy. Cade Weaver, won that game. I think the key for West Hills is to be stopping junior running back Miles Bryant. He averages over 130 yards a game. So I think for Zach Bell, Austin Dennison, Lucas Aki, the run stoppers, going to have to slow down Sarah there. West Hills better win this one by 8.
Okay. Now Santana at 500 is going to load up the buses, head out east, take on Vincent Memorial, and try to get above the 500 mark.
Yeah, Santana has some experience playing some IV teams, but this is the first time these 2 teams have met. The Scots come in 4-0. We knew they'd be 4-0, I think. I mean, they played kind of an easy schedule for them, and they've been 4-0 in this position in years past. So they look good on paper. The numbers are incredible. Valenzuela, their quarterback, over 1,100 yards so far, 14 TDs, no interceptions. I know Santana's got to be concerned about those type of numbers. But I think if Santana, guys like Luke Simonek gets in there, and he's really been doing some good things. He's just a young player, a sophomore. And also Landon Wood last week, he was our East County Defensive Player of the Week, but he also had 2 touchdowns on offense. So Santana, Josh Odewald had 4 touchdown passes last week. I think the computer favors Vincent Memorial in this one. I've got the Sultans by a point.
And a continuation of the round robin of common opponents. We have Steel Canyon taking on Otay Ranch. Of course, Otay will be playing Valhalla in another week after this. So once again, kind of an interesting matchup here.
Steel Canyon is off a bye last week, and they're probably seething to get back on the field after the loss to Madison and then the loss to Granite Hills. Otay Ranch does present kind of a tough challenge, but the Cougars, they come off that game with Granite Hills. I want you to look for Jordan Anderson, 4 touchdown passes from Thomas Fishburne in that game, kind of under the radar that he had such a big game in that one. Otay beat the Saints last week. The Mustangs are good, but they're not dynamic. They feature a 3-to-1 run-to-pass ratio, so I think it's something that Steel Canyon can handle. Otay favored in the computers, but I've got Steel Canyon by a point.
Okay. And Mount Miguel, 1-3, taking on Imperial, who's also 1-3.
Well, it's another bus ride here going out to the Imperial Valley. Mugabe Miller, he had 2 touchdowns in that West Hills game, throwing and 1 rushing, so he looked great again. I think having the security blanket of Shamar Green in his running game, even though he's bottled up a little bit last week with only 60 yards, when he gets going, it opens things up for the fast guys, Pacheco and Jarvis Hurd. First meeting between these 2 teams, you want to key on Imperial's Brandon Hueso. He had 200 yards rushing last week, so guys like Diamante Wafer, Ulysses Manji, got to get in there and try to bottle him up and let the DBs do their work. They have 2 wide receivers that are just kind of okay. I've got Mount Miguel winning this one by a field goal.
Another real tough challenge for an East County team is Monte Vista. They get Bishops, and we've seen Bishops can really score in bunches.
Well, I guess they got a little bit of a look last week at a passing team, but nothing like this Bishops team. And, you think of Bishops and all their quality players like the Jackson brothers and Moses Mooney as this explosive, high-flying team. But really, they're just a ball control offense, short, precision passes into the flat, over the middle, in the backfield. That's how Bishops has been doing it, and that's how they've climbed the charts right now as one of the county's best teams. So I think that's going to be tough for Monte Vista. The thing they need to do is run Jamon and try to stop Bishops. Run Jamon, eat the clock up, stay within a score. Right now, I've got Bishops winning this one by 2 scores.
Well, Elkhorn Valley last week had a really tough matchup with Crawford. Kind of got beat around a little bit. They've had some emotional challenges over there. But they get Sweetwater 0-3 this week. Is that it's an opportunity for them to bounce back?
It is, but this one is still closely rated, and I think the injury to Mikkel Garner, he went off the field early in that game last week against Crawford, and it really took the Braves out of the game. Crawford was the better team, and they were probably going to win that, but when Garner went out early, it really put a lot of emphasis on Darrell Davis and the rest of the Braves defense as well, so that hurt them. I'm hoping that Mikkel is ready, but he tried to go back in the game. He was limping, I'm not sure, and I think that could be a factor in this game. Mikey Malone did a great job for the Braves in that game, and he leads their defense. The Red Devils have been blitzed so far, that 0-3 record, but they have played superior opponents. Note in this one, the Sweetwater coach is former Chargers punter Brian Wagner, the 9-year NFL veteran that played so many years, so that's kind of interesting. And also, their running back Sesma, he's going to be getting the cast off his left hand. In fact, he already did. He had 1,600 yards rushing last year, so I'm looking for Sweetwater possibly to win this one. I've got Sweetwater by a field goal. Go Braves.
That's the inside scoop you get from East County Sports on the East County Sports Report. We know when casts are coming off. That's good reporting right there. Of course, Granite Hills 2-1. Big emotional victories over their 2 rivals, and now they play Valley Center. Unless I'm missing something, there's not a real natural rivalry between these 2 schools. How do you think this one
Granite
pans
Hills
out?
doesn't go up to the north too often, so I wonder if that's kind of a factor that they haven't, because they've gone up and they've taken their lumps a little bit up there. But the Eagles, they probably are on the other end of what Steel Canyon did. They had that big win, and then they had a bye. They probably wanted to play again the next week. Valley Center is the higher ranked team, so they're probably a little bit favored in this one. But I got to point out in that Steel Canyon game, William Burton, he's like our East County version of Gronk. I mean, they threw it to him in the end zone. He caught one, the game winner in traffic. They threw it to him on the flat. He's rumbling down the field. He just looks great right now. The Jags, they have good balance. They're an up-tempo team, but one wide receiver has over 50% of the catches. So let's focus on him a little bit. The thing that worries me is when you go to Valley Center, East County teams have seen this before, some crazy, wacko finishes, and somehow Valley Center pulls off the win. I think Granite Hills knows they can win this game. I guess Valley Center is going to win by 2 points.
Okay, all right. Another travel game, if you will. Of course, Grossmont staying at home, but they're entertaining Buena Park from Orange County. How is this one for you to scout out a little bit? That's quite a distance for Buena Park.
Well, it would seem like an interesting matchup, but it's not really. I mean, Grossmont is the better team. They're favored in this one, and they should be favored. One thing that Grossmont has is a very good secondary, and I think that is a key for the Hillers in this one. They can just do their job and let the up front men, who also have played very well this season, corral the Cougars a little bit. And I think Grossmont's specialty players, their skill players, guys like Thomas Mangum, Josh Moala, Chevelle Sterling, they have great offensive talent. The thing that plagued the Hillers last week was all the turnovers. Sure. So let's cut down the turnovers. Let's not go down the field as far, and let's throw short passes, keep the ball moving with those fast guys. I've got Grossmont winning this one by at least 14 points.
Okay, and our last game in the East County that we're going to talk about, Mountain Empire 2-2 invades Crawford, which is a perfect 4-0, and Crawford obviously one of the flying high programs in prep football in San Diego.
Well, we saw them last week against the Braves, guys like Ali Musa, Nico Perry, Sean Bilala. They were a great team. They looked great. They shut out the Braves 35-0. Mountain Empire is coming off a shutout. They played a Southern Section team, the team we talked about from Yermo, and Mountain Empire did not fare very well in that game. They lost 29-0. So the Red Hawks need to get their offense rolling a little bit with Gabriel Hydorn and Wyatt Mann. We know their defense can make tackles and do some things, and they're going to be busy against this Crawford team. Still, the Red Hawks have played their way up from really the lowest ranking in Division 5 this year into playoff contention. This game doesn't hurt them that much. You just want to go out and have a good showing. If you can pull off the upset, that would be great too. Red Hawks beat Hoover at home 21-7. The Colts beat Hoover 31-0. I got Crawford by at least 2 scores.
All right, well, it's going to be a busy week 5. I'm pretty excited to get out and maybe see a game or two this week. Of course, if you want more details on these upcoming games, head on over to eastcountysports.com. I'll tell you what, you do good work, the Fearless Forecaster, all those things right up there for you to enjoy. Also, another thing for you to enjoy each week is we have Hutch, Coach Harun Hutchinson, who has got a really good topic this week, one I don't think most fans think about, and that is grades. It's week 5, which means we're almost to the 6-week grading period for a lot of our schools out here in the East County, and sometimes these teams can change a little bit. They lose a player or two due to grades, maybe they get one back, and Hutch has got more details on one of the biggest challenges of coaching, and that is keeping kids' grades where they need to be. Hutch, take it away.
Wanted to talk tonight on Under the Lights about a really important part of this football season. We're at the point in the season right now where league seasons are about to get started up. People are looking at rankings right now to see where teams are going to line up in terms of divisions and playoff rankings. But the most important event that's going on in all of San Diego County high school football is not those things. It's the first grading period that's coming up. So today we're going to talk about academics and athletics. A number of teams around the county are practicing and playing, and in 2 weeks, a number of those teams are going to lose key players because of academic eligibility. It is a big deal for most programs. It's a big deal for not just the varsity programs, but freshman teams will lose players, JV teams will lose players. And to be quite honest, as a teacher who coached, for teachers, it's an amazing time of year because not only are you watching game film and game planning your opponent, you have a stack of essays you've been trying to ignore for 2 or 3 weeks that you have to get done and get graded to get grades turned in on time. So for all of those coaches out there who teach, for all of those players who are dealing with their academics, it is an important time of year. It's time to go do your work, people. Get your job done. Good luck. Have fun on Friday.
Great as always, Hutch. Each week on the East County Sports Report, we also like to talk a little bit about junior college football. Grossmont in action this weekend. What do they got coming up?
Well, second straight road game. They're going to go up to Chaffee. They lost at El Camino last week, 58-23. Didn't go very well for Grossmont. We thought it would be a tough game. This one should be easier, but a little bit of revenge maybe for Grossmont. Last year they played Chaffee. Grossmont came into the game 4-0 at home. Chaffee came in and upset them. So maybe that can motivate Grossmont a little bit. Brad Cagle's in there, but you know what? Josh Harris has taken some reps at quarterback. You might remember his story. He was at Helix for 3 years and led Helix to a strong record. Then transferred to Oceanside when it looked like Carson Baker was going to come in and be the quarterback at Helix. Didn't work out for Josh at Oceanside. He went ahead, did his missionary work in Nicaragua, has now come back to Grossmont, has enrolled as a freshman. He got in the game, second game he's got into, but last week he threw 5 for 7 and a touchdown pass. So maybe Josh, he's a freshman. Maybe he's the quarterback they'll be looking to in the future. He might get more reps if the Grossmont season doesn't go the way it should, or if they get ahead in some of these games, we're going to see more of him. Former Castle Park wide receiver from the Griffins, Malik Steen, had 6 receptions last week. So the Griffins have some weapons on offense, including former Valhalla running back Jerome Johnson. Should be a close game. I think Grossmont, let's give Grossmont a chance to get this one the upset. Grossmont by 1.
Very good. We want to wish the best of luck to all the East County schools out there. Of course, join us next week here on the East County Sports Report, where we'll break down all of these games and predict the next week. And we're just a couple weeks away from league, so a lot of exciting things coming your way. Of course, more details can be found on eastcountysports.com. We'll see you next week.